That night at the cast dinner, Paul Walker was not supposed to say a single word. But the moment Tyrese Gibson laughed across the table and told him he could not even drive a stick shift, Paul slowly placed his fork down, stood up, and dropped a set of keys in front of him that would change the way the entire crew looked at him forever. The restaurant was tucked into a quiet corner of downtown Los Angeles, the kind of place reserved months in advance, where waiters wore black ties and the wine list was longer than most novels. The cast had gathered to celebrate the wrap of another long shooting block, and the mood was supposed to be light. Glasses clinked, plates moved, laughter filled the wood-paneled room. Paul Walker sat at the far end of the table, quiet as always, listening more than he spoke. He had never been the loudest voice in any room, and he had never wanted to be. He let his work speak for him, and he let the cars he drove speak even louder. Tyrese Gibson had been drinking since the appetizers arrived. He was telling stories, loud ones, the kind that grew bigger with every glass of wine. He talked about street races he claimed to have won, about cars he claimed to have built, about engines he said he had tuned with his own two hands. The crew laughed politely, the way people laugh when a man is paying for the table and refuses to lower his voice. Paul Walker laughed too, but only with his eyes, and only because he had learned long ago that silence was a better weapon than argument. Then Tyrese turned his attention across the table. He pointed his fork at Paul, half a smile on his lips, and said the words loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear. "You know what is funny, bro? I bet you cannot even drive stick shift. All these movies, all this fame, and I bet you have never touched a real manual transmission in your life. You are a poster boy. That is all you are." The table went quiet, the kind of quiet that does not happen by accident. Vin Diesel slowly set his glass down. Michelle Rodriguez stopped chewing. Jordana Brewster looked at Paul, then at Tyrese, then back at Paul again. The waiter who had been refilling water glasses froze mid-pour. Even the music in the background seemed to fade, as if the restaurant itself was holding its breath. Paul Walker did not flinch. He did not raise his voice. He did not even look angry. He simply set his fork down on the white linen, folded his napkin neatly, and reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. He pulled out a small black key fob, the kind that opens a very specific kind of car, and placed it gently on the table in front of Tyrese Gibson. The keys made almost no sound, but everyone heard them. Then he reached back into his pocket and pulled out a second set, an old worn set with a leather strap, the kind of keys that had been used 1,000 times. He placed those next to the first set, then a third, then a fourth. By the time he was done, there were 6 different keys lined up in a row on the table, and Tyrese Gibson had stopped smiling. Paul Walker spoke for the first time that night, and his voice was so quiet that everyone leaned forward to hear him. "These 6 cars are parked outside. The first one is a 1973 Porsche Carrera, manual transmission, original gearbox. The second is a Nissan Skyline right-hand drive manual. The third is a BMW Motorsport Edition manual. The fourth is a Ford Gran Torino 4-speed manual. The fifth is a Toyota Supra 6-speed manual. The sixth is a Mazda RX-7 twin-turbo manual. I built 3 of them myself. I rebuilt the gearbox on 2 of them with my father in the garage when I was 16 years old. I own 47 manual transmission vehicles. I have raced manual transmissions for 20 years. I have a personal collection that has been featured in 3 magazines." He paused. He looked Tyrese Gibson directly in the eye, and the smile that had been on Tyrese's face was completely gone now. The crew was staring. Vin Diesel was staring. Michelle Rodriguez had her hand over her mouth. Paul Walker did not raise his voice. He did not have to. "You can take any one of those keys. Any one. We can leave this restaurant right now, drive to the canyon, and you can show me what you can do. I will let you pick the cart. I will let you pick the route. I will sit in the passenger seat and I will not say a word. All I am asking is that you actually drive, not talk about driving, not tell stories about driving, actually drive. And if you can keep up with me, if you can finish the route without grinding the gears, without stalling, without burning the clutch, I will personally apologize to you in front of everyone at this table. I will tell every magazine and every interviewer that Tyrese Gibson is a better driver than I am. I will sign that promise on a napkin right now." He paused again. The silence in the room was almost unbearable. "But if you cannot, if you grind one gear, if you stall once, if you cannot finish the route, then you stand up at this table tomorrow night, in front of this same crew, and you tell them the truth. You tell them you do not know cars. You tell them you have been making it up, and you never speak about my driving again." Tyrese Gibson did not move. His face had gone pale. The wine glass in his hand was trembling just slightly, just enough for a man across the table to notice. He opened his mouth to say something. He closed it. He opened it again. The words would not come. Paul Walker waited. He waited a full 30 seconds, and 30 seconds is a very long time when 40 people are watching you. Then he reached forward, gathered the 6 keys back into his palm one by one, and slid them into his jacket pocket. He looked at Tyrese, and there was no anger in his face, no pride, no victory, just something quieter, something almost like pity. "That is what I thought," Paul said. He stood up, folded his napkin one more time, set it neatly on his chair, and walked out of the restaurant without finishing his meal. The next morning, the story had spread. The crew talked about it on set. Stunt drivers talked about it in the parking lot. Within a week, every person in Hollywood who worked on a car movie had heard some version of what happened that night at the restaurant. Tyrese Gibson never publicly addressed it. He never apologized. He never denied it either. But for the rest of the production, whenever the conversation turned to cars, Tyrese Gibson stayed quiet. And whenever Paul Walker walked onto set, every single person, from the director to the lighting technician, looked at him a little differently than they had before. Years later, after Paul Walker was gone, several members of the crew still talked about that night. They said it was the moment they understood who Paul really was. He was not the quiet one because he was weak. He was the quiet one because he never needed to be loud. He let the cars speak for him. He let his hands speak for him. And when someone tried to take that from him, he did not raise his voice. He simply opened his pocket, and the truth fell out. Tyrese Gibson eventually became one of Paul's closest friends, and he often said in later interviews that Paul had taught him a lesson he never forgot. If this story moved you, hit that like button right now and subscribe to this channel for more untold stories about the people behind the fame. These are the moments that do not make headlines but change lives forever. Drop a comment below and tell us, would you have stood up for yourself the way Paul did that night? Or would you have let the words slide? Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that quiet strength is the loudest answer of all. We tell real stories like this every single week, so turn on notifications and we will see you in the next one.